Good evening, everyone. So, in our previous classes, we have done with 11th class NCERTs of Sociology. From today's class, we are going to discuss about 12th class NCERTs. In 12th class NCERTs, there are two NCERTs. One is Indian Society. The next NCERT is Social Change. Okay. So, more or less, the basics you learned in 11th class is going to complement your understanding in 12th class NCERTs. So, when we are talking about social change, you remember in 11th class, last chapter, we talked about social change. So, social change is the core concepts in 12th class NCERTs, the last NCERTs which we are going to study. Now, when we are going to discuss about this 12th class NCERT Indian Society, what do we discuss? Let me make it very clear. This NCERT class is going to help you majorly not only in Sociology Optional but in GS1 Indian Society. You have that Indian Society, no? So all the questions, all the topics will be overlapped in this NCERT. So these classes will help you to get good marks in GS1 Society. Now, in this chapter, in this NCERT, what we are going to study? Briefly, we will be studying about Indian society, how Indian society has been impacted, how to understand Indian society in a proper way, what are the aspects which we have to focus in Indian society. And when we are talking about Indian society, we will not only talk about social institutions which shaped Indian society, institutions which are shaped by Indian society, okay, and how Indian society has been undergone change and what are the factors which has brought changes in Indian society. Like, is Indian society stagnant? Is Indian society undergoing change? If at all Indian society is undergoing change, what type of factors related to change in Indian society? Like early Indian society, what was the nature of Indian society? In later Indian society, what is the nature? If we talk about, particularly we talk about one institution, caste system, how caste system has undergone change, what is the definition of caste system, what are the characteristics of caste system, and what is the change which undergone by caste system. When we are talking about marriage, how marriage as an institution has undergone change. Next, we will be talking in this chapter, in this NCERTs, first we will have an introduction to Indian society. Next unit, second unit, we will be talking about demography. Demography is the demographic profile, the population profile of India. How population profile is changing, what are the factors leading to change in population profile. After that, we will be talking about how economic institutions, how market as an institution is shaping Indian society, how Indian society is shaping market. Okay, so that we will be discussing. So overall, we are going to discuss about this point. After learning this NCERT, after finishing this NCERTs, you will have a clear idea about how to look at Indian society, what are the factors which contributed to change and continuity with respect to Indian society. Okay, so in this 12th class NCERT, we are going to discuss about, first we will discuss about introducing Indian society, then we will be talking about demography, second chapter, then we will be talking about social institutions, different institutions, caste, tribe, kinship, marriage. Next, market, how market is playing an impact on Indian society. Next, we will be talking about inequalities which is existing in the society. Then we will be looking into cultural diversity. So, in UPSC GS1, there is a topic called Unity in Diversity of India. Salient features. In GS1, you have a topic called Salient features of Indian society. When you are talking about salient features of Indian society, you will understand the cultural diversity of India. What type of cultural diversity is prevailing in India? What is unity in diversity? Okay, what is salient features? Unique features which exist only in India, which don't exist in other countries. So you will understand that. So when we talk about cultural diversity, we will be talking about this aspect, salient features of Indian society. In optional, in UPSC Sociology Optional in paper 2, you first when we look into UPSC Optional Sociology paper 2, I want to explain here. When we look into UPSC Optional paper 2, this optional paper 2 syllabus can be divided into 3 components. One is Sociology of India, Sociology of India, Sociology for India. Okay. Now, when we are talking about these 3 divisions, there are A, B, C sections. A section will introduce you to Indian society. For once you are reading the A section, I'm telling you, UPSC Optional Sociology paper 2, there are 3 divisions, A, B, C. A section will introduce you to the society called India. So you are getting familiarizing with a society called India. That will be discussed in A. B section will be talking about the institutions which existed in India, the structure which existed in India. First you will introduce, then you will understand the structure. For that matter, when you are looking for a destination, you are Sarat Chandra IAS Academy. In the map, you will see, Sarat Chandra IAS Academy is located in Ashok Nagar. This is an IAS Academy. In this, there is an option called Sociology. You will be introduced, then you will understand there is a structure. Our classroom, Sociology classes start at 4 o'clock. Okay, this is a faculty. Then you will understand the structure, you will understand the institutions. Next, C section will be talking about Sociology for India. This section is very much important. Sociology means nothing but how sociological knowledge, how sociological understanding will help you to frame policies for India. Sociological policies will help you to understand. Sociological policies will help you to understand what are the social issues which is prevailing in Indian society. Why there is caste conflicts. What are the solutions for caste conflicts? Because already sociologists have done research. Why there is a violence against women? How to address violence against women? That is Sociology for India. Means nothing but in India, what are all the social issues and how sociological knowledge will help to address those problems. In India, why communalism is there and how to address communalism. In India, why regionalism is there? What are the measures to take for regionalism? So this is a broader division in paper 2 syllabus. Introduction, structure, institutions and sociology for India. Okay. Now, when we are talking about these 3 subsections, the basic understanding, you have to start with this. If you don't understand what is Indian society, what are the compositions of Indian society, you don't understand. What are the problems of Indian society, you don't understand. Now you understood. This acts as a base for B, B acts as a base for C. Now, to understand A properly, this NCERT, that is Indian Society, NCERT is going to help. The foundations will be led by this Indian Society NCERT. Is it clear? Why we are studying this NCERT, now we have understood. Okay. Okay. So what you are going to learn in these 6 chapters? What you are going to learn in these 6 chapters? First one is introducing Indian society. Okay. Next we will be talking about demographic structure. Then we will be talking about social institutions. As I said, mark it as a social institutions, patterns of inequalities and exclusion. Why some communities are facing inequalities? Why this inequality is hereditary? Why some communities are staying poor, even though their generations are changing? That we will be trying to look. and why some communities are excluded communities. What are those communities which are always facing exclusion? And last one is we will be talking about cultural diversity. How to use this material? This you know, by this time you have understood. So first up, we will go to first chapter, introducing Indian society. Now, first chapter is introducing Indian society. So pay attention here. First 15 to 20 minutes you pay attention, then you will understand what we are going to learn in this chapter. Okay, I'll try to sum up what we are going to learn. Actually, you know, of all the content which we have learned, Western sociologist is a content which is very new, you might not be knowing. Indian sociologist also, that is very important. Western sociologist and Indian sociologist. And this chapter is also very much important. This chapter will define your understanding for paper 2. So that is the reason why Indian society NCERT is very important. Now, first of all, when you want to study Indian society, first doubt emerges is, I am a part of this society. What is that something which I will learn? Till now I don't know. Till now I am not aware of that knowledge which I was a part of that society. That is very important. And many people take sociology as an option because of this reason. Because in sociology you are not going to learn something new. You will learn something which already you know with a new perspective. That is what sociology is. Defamiliarization of familiar. New eyes to the known world. Now, in Indian society, how do we introduce Indian society is, when we study Indian society, we will understand chronologically how Indian society have shaped. Chronologically, what are the institutions which influenced Indian society? Chronologically, how Indian society has been shaped, framed by different factors. What are the major events which happened in Indian society? How these major events shaped Indian society? After these major events, do they have profound impact even today or not? Okay, so these all aspects we will be studying. Now, when we look at Indian society, what happened in India was, Indian society has so many peculiar qualities which are not possessed by other countries. That is the reason why I talked about caste system. Indian society has many salient features like unity in diversity, cultural diversity, tribal diversity, linguistic diversity. Many countries don't have. And many people think that India is a unified nation. In India's 80 years of independence is saying that India is known for its, roughly, approximately 80 years of independence is a testimony to the fact that India is known for its unity, India is known for its, solidarity, according to Durkheim. But many people don't know what are the factors. There are some countries where differences were not there, still they were not being able to be united. But in India, there are so many differences, but still we maintain that unity. So this has become a $1 million question to many people. That is the reason why you see, if you ask any Westerner, what is the best place they have visited in their lifetime, they will not talk about the one tourist destination. They will not talk about one place. They will talk about a country called India, because country called India would introduce you that diversity. So amidst this much diversity, why India maintaining unity? So that we will be understanding in this NCERT. Now, to understand all these aspects, you have to understand the background of Indian society. So what is the background of Indian society is, when you want to understand, for suppose in paper 2, when I'll ask you this question, According to you, what are the main features? According to you, what are the main features of Indian society? Ante, my simple question is, when a foreigner asks you to introduce your country to him, okay, you cannot have so much of time. He is not sociology lecturer. You will spend 3 or 4 hours in explaining them. It is a conversation. He will be asked your time. He will be asking you for class for around, he will have your interest only for 10 minutes. In 10 minutes or in 5 minutes, in a brief, what features do you highlight when you talk about Indian society? Okay, brotherhood. Very good. Brotherhood. It's okay, sir. There is no one answer. I want your answers. I'm not looking for correct answers. I'm looking for your answers. Once I get your answers, we will shape the correct answer. No need to worry. Okay. Unity in diversity. Okay. నేను చెప్పిన పాయింట్స్ కాదు, కొత్తవి చెప్పండి. Don't repeat the points which I have discussed. Okay. Unity in diversity. Next. Agriculture based. Okay. Agrarian structure. Very important. Very good. Next. Agrarian structure or primordial identity of India or primary occupation of India is agriculture. Very good. Next. What else? Are you are not in a position to introduce your country to foreigner. Very pathetic. How can you become an IAS officer? Food. Okay. Cuisine. Very good. Cuisine is one factor. Traditions. Heritage. Language. Okay. Next. Geographical variation. Okay. So what you have said is absolutely correct. But when I want to introduce my Indian society to a foreigner, and not only me, many sociologists tried to define Indian society by emphasizing on all these aspects, but more or less they emphasized on these aspects, but majorly Indian sociologists emphasized on village studies. Villages till now also majority of Indians lives in villages. Okay, they explained Indian society through village studies. Next, they explained Indian society through study on caste system. Yes, they explain Indian society through agrarian structure. Agrarian structure more or less will be agrarian structure. Okay, agrarian structure. Okay, village studies, caste system. Someone tried to explain India through the lens of religion also. For that matter, G.S. Gurye used Hindu traditions as a base to understand Indian society. You understand my point? So, now the point here is this Indian society which we tried to use as a reference for Indian society, these institutions or these structures which is existing in Indian society has underwent a change or Indian society as such has underwent a change because of different factors. What do you think is the major factor which influenced or which shaped Indian society historically? Now you understood? First point is clear. You understood. If at all you want to introduce Indian society, this is how you will introduce. Okay. So apart from these points, we'll be talking about village studies, we'll be talking about caste system, we'll be talking about tribes, we'll be talking about religion, we'll be talking about language, all these things. But all these things have underwent a change because of major factor in India. What is that major event or major factor which happened in India? Because of that event, India underwent so much of change. First one is Aryans invasion, ancient. But you know, when we are talking about Aryan invasion, definitely we don't have many written records. So we cannot, that will be an assumption. It brought a caste system. I am not denying it. What I am trying to say is, I am looking for those factors which can be conclusively proven. One such event is British rule. British rule. Impact of British rule on Indian society has led to drastical changes. Okay. What are the drastical changes which has been brought? Okay. So, one such, when you talk about all this structure of Indian society, everything was influenced by colonialism. Yes or no? Village structures underwent change. Caste system underwent change. Agrarian structure underwent change. How we'll be discussing it. Now, colonialism, as I said, no, initially colonials, Western scholars tried to understand Indian society for their administrative purpose. So they, for their administrative convenience, they understood Indian society. They studied about Indian society. Colonials studied about Indian society. Later, Indian sociologists studied Indian society keeping reference of impact of colonial rule on Indian society. How colonials influenced Indian society. So before colonials studied Indian society. Indian sociologists, Indian scholars studied the impact of Indian society, impact of colonial rule on Indian society. Now you understood how this study on Indian society is changing. Now, how impact of British rule on Indian society. Impact of British rule on Indian society. We will not go into details because this we have to discuss in so many layers. I will not touch all the layers. I will discuss one specific aspect to give you the essence how British rule has impacted. We cannot comprehensively cover because we don't have time. And even this NCERT is just talking about how colonials have impacted. Okay. For that matter, what I am discussing is hardly in 3 or 4 pages in your NCERT. But it is talking about all these aspects. So I am decoding those 4 pages. Now, how Britishers have impacted Indian society? First of all, you know, what Britishers have done is, first of all, what is the purpose why Britishers have come to India? Exploiting India, simple as it is. We are not going to extend the conversation. Exploiting India. So that is the reason why they wanted to exploit India. That is the reason why they came to India. When they want to exploit the India, definitely they cannot say that their purpose is exploiting. They will come with an other propaganda. What is the propaganda? That we are Aryans, we are superior race, and India is uncivilized people, barbaric people, snake charmers. India is a country of snake charmers. Pamul Vatkunetu Lanara Leda. India is a country of snake charmers. That is the reason why we will civilize Indians. It is white man's burden to civilize India. So they thought that India is a rigid society, India is not progressive society, India is not developed society. That is the reason why we want to bring these changes to make from rigid society to egalitarian society, non-civilized to civilized, rational, irrational to rational. That is their propaganda. That is not true. Not developed to develop. But you know, many people like Dadabhai Nauroji, many Indian scholars talked about economic drain of Indian resources. Earlier, India was a country of handcrafts. India was agriculture productivity was high. Indian artisan industry flourished. Indian traditional industries like handicraft industries gani, handmade products gani, local like what you say, how Indian home used to be there is the like if this is the house, beside the house there used to be a farm, and in front of the house there used to be a industry like traditional industry. Traditional industry might be weaving anna, lekapothe blacksmith gani, anything. They used to make products. This type of traditional Indian goods were flourishing in India. This Britishers thought that if India became the colony, they don't want Indian products, Indian goods to flourish. That is the reason why they stopped encouraging Indian goods. And that is the reason why Indian products, Indian goods which were exported to Western countries, they imposed so many duties. This you know. So that is how the traditional Indian industry was wreaked havoc by Britishers. They damaged the foundations of Indian traditional industries. So this is how you see Indian society has been influenced by Britishers. Okay. Now you understood this, you know. This already you studied in history. In general studies you will be studying. Now I'll be giving you some other aspects of impact of British rule which you don't know, which we'll study in sociology. This already in freedom struggle you know, no. Britishers exploited, Britishers devastated our economy, Britishers have broken the traditional industries, British Indian goods were being imposed high duties. Because of that, you see Indian goods were not exported and foreign goods flooded Indian market. All these things you know. Now, okay, this is the basic argument. Now, building on this basic argument, because of British rule, what happened in India was, when we are talking about villages, what happened was, before British came to India, Britishers thought that villages were like closed units. We discussed this point. Villages were like closed units, and these closed units did not have any connect with other villages. Means nothing but when you talk about Indian villages, these villages were independent, isolated. Okay, so this was how Britishers understood Indian villages. But Indian scholars or Indian sociologists or Indian scholars like Gandhiji, Nehru, Ambedkar, many people, Subhash Chandra Bose, many people questioned this notion of understanding of Britishers. They said that Indian villages are not isolated, rather they are integrated. That is the reason why I talked about now M.N. Srinivas. What did he say? If for these 4 villages, there used to be one temple, and all the 4 villages used to pray to this temple. If at all everyone is going to one temple, how can you say that there is no connect? So, what is happening in Indian society is, understanding of Indian society was also, once we understood Indian society from the lens of colonials, means Western scholars. When Indian sociologists studied understanding Indian society, they wrote the books. They rejected this notion of understanding of Indian societies. And they said that Indian villages are not isolated, rather Indian villages are integrated. One village is developing relation with other village, and Indian villages are not isolated. There was a connectivity which is there. But one thing happened was in India, what happened was when Britishers came to India, they came with an what is the sole purpose for which they came to India? Exploitation. And in India, in ancient India, when Britishers came to India, in medieval India, when Britishers came to India, don't you think where is the potential for exploitation? What is the area where they can exploit India? Britishers came to India. See, I went to a bank to rob bank. Why did I go to bank only? Because bank has the source of money. I go and do a robbery in jewelry shop. I go for the purpose of robbing jewelry. Why Britishers came to India to exploit India? What is that they wanted to exploit? They want to exploit Indian resources. And what is that one major resource which Britishers want to exploit? Is Britishers know that land is the huge potential for exploitation. But this land, before Britishers were a community ownership. Britishers want the ownership of land. If they want the ownership of land, what they will be doing is, they will try to integrate these villages. Yes, already Indian villages were integrated. They will try to integrate these villages. In the name of integration of villages, they introduce revenue policies. When they introduced revenue policies, what happened? Automatically land got transferred into British property. Once British property has been transferred, now they started extracting uneven revenues, dues from land. Land tax happened. And this is how Britishers started to integrate villages on the name of land revenue, land exploitation, revenue exploitation. Okay, that is the reason why zamindari, rayatwari, all these things emerged. Now, this is nothing but understanding of Indian society only. We are understanding Indian society. Now, with these British policies, what happened in India? What happened in India was, these villages got integrated. As I said, no, villages were integrated earlier, but more integration happened. And village isolation village dependencies were there. And this is how what happened in India was. Now you understood the story. So colonial policy. Now the point here is, impact of British rule in India is, colonial policy influence Indian villages. And this influence of colonial policies on Indian villages, how it impacted is, earlier, chala important gurtupettukondi, earlier Indian villages, very important, Indian villages were having village consciousness. That is what I said, no? Yes, they had connectivity with other countries, but they used to be having more village consciousness. Ippudu kuda undi village consciousness. They had more village consciousness. But British policy, what they have introduced? Land revenue, land reforms, land taxation, land revenue policies. Because of that, this village consciousness gradually emerged into the rise of national consciousness. Are you understanding this? How village consciousness led to the emergence of national consciousness. Earlier, villages were connected, but they have more concentration. Their view was more on their village. But because of this land revenue policies, what is happening? There is a zamindari. One mandal was under one zamindar. One district was under one zamindar. Okay, Rayatwari system introduced. Okay, because Mahalwari system introduced. Because of this, what is happening is village land which was a property of village gradually transferred into land as a property of Britishers. Now, don't you think villagers will realize that land was our property? First of all, why are we paying tax to Britishers? And who are these Britishers to extract this tax? Now, don't you think that village consciousness will lead to rise of national consciousness? That is the reason why sociologists will say that in India, impact of British rule led to the emergence of nationalism. So, colonial policies even led to the emergence of national consciousness. Means who dig their own grave? Colonials dig their own grave. You understand my point? So this is how sociologists will look into the study of Indian society. So in Indian society, we will be studying about village studies. We will be studying about agrarian structure also. Agrarian structure, when we are looking into agrarian structure, agriculture structure, earlier everyone was dependent on agriculture. Now what Britishers have done? Britishers have introduced industries. Because of industries, what happened? British farmers got shifted from agriculture to industries and all. Because of that, what is happening? That agrarian structure is undergoing transformation, and because of that, peasants, workers happen. And you know, peasant workers happen. Peasant class increasing, working class improve, labor class is increasing. You know, interestingly in India, peasants and workers increased, laborers increased. Generally, laborers should have conflict. According to Marxism, laborers should question whom? Industrialist. But here, majority of the industries are whom? Britishers. And Indian industries have been exploited. Indian industries have been replaced. Automatically, laborers, peasants consolidated and they started revolting against Britishers. That is also led to the rise of nationalism. Now, are you understanding how we study impact of British rule on Indian society? This is not it. There are so many dimensions which we will be discussing. But to give an essence, what do we study? In paper 2 of Indian sociology, and what has been mentioned in our NCERT is also that impact of British rule, colonialism has dug their own grave by imbibing that national consciousness in India. And this national consciousness was used by freedom fighters to ignite this national consciousness, to imbibe, to revive this national consciousness and to gain freedom. So that is the reason why freedom struggle became successful, and the national consciousness in India has been aroused because of colonial policies. Okay, so these were mentioned in the first chapter. Okay, introducing Indian society. Why study our own society? The sociological imagination in Indian context. Sociological imagination, you know, who gave the word called sociological imagination? C. Mills. C.W. Mills. Okay. So why study Indian society? What is the insider dilemma when we study Indian society? We are part of this society. At the end of the day, we are studying ourselves. Studying Indian societies, we are studying ourselves. We both are the subject and object of study. We are studying ourselves and we are studying Indian society. Sociology requires us to step back from everyday assumptions and look at our own life. That is what I said. No, people, fish in a water will take water for granted. Okay, we in our own society, we take our society for granted. Okay, that have to be changed. Sociology requires us to step back from everyday assumptions and look at our own life. Caste at weddings, dowry, the silence around menstruation. Don't you see, till now, there is a demand that monthly when woman is undergoing this menstruation cycle, okay, during those days, there should be leave or work from home should be given. But unfortunately, we still are yet to implement that. For that matter, these sanitary napkins are also not being given free in India. Sanitary napkins are at high cost. Quality sanitary napkins is not being provided. For that matter, see, sanitary napkins are not being provided free. That is one of the major problem. Very unfortunate thing in India is, when you go and purchase the sanitary napkin, the shopkeeper will seal that as if it is something he's selling the drugs. That there is a stigma. What I'm trying to say is, there is a stigma. There is a lack of awareness with respect to this menstrual hygiene. Unhygienic menstruation will cause serious health issues to women. So menstruation is not being discussed openly in India. That is very unfortunate. Okay, the neighborhood's religious composition. Okay, so this is why Sarat means called sociological imagination, linking personal geography to public history. When you understand our own society, understand our own public life, private life, nothing but knowing about private life is nothing but personal public issue. Woman undergoing menstrual cycle, that will be, we think it is a private issue, but actually it is nothing but it is a public issue, because woman, if at all she is not provided proper menstrual hygiene and menstrual education awareness, it is going to impact Indian society a lot. Okay, so that needs to be done. So in society, when we are studying about Indian society, we are nothing but we are studying about our own selves. Okay, next, sociology versus common sense, we know. Now, sir, why did this sociology versus common sense arise when we are studying about Indian society? What this NCERT or what UPSC Optional is saying, that don't look Indian society from a common sense perspective. What is common sense perspective? Common sense perspective is simple ga. Already you understood common sense, advanced level of common sense explanation, because taking the discussion next level, because I don't want to repeat the same point again and again. Taking the discussion next level. What is that? Common sense is, whatever I said, you assume that it's true and take for granted. If a teacher is saying it is his opinion, why should his opinion should be your own opinion? My opinion might be not correct in all the times. I'm not saying my knowledge. I'm talking my opinion. Many students, whenever I ask you to write an answer about open-ended questions, whatever conclusion I have given in my class, that will be written in your exam. Every year I teach around 100 or 250 students, sociology optional. If everyone is writing those same conclusion, don't you think examiner will understand that these people have studied from one person? So that is what I am saying. Common sense, don't study Indian society through common sense. Study Indian society through sociological lens. What is sociological lens? At every step, you have to question. At every step, you have to think. You have to think rationally. Why there is patrilocal nature of marriage? What is patrilocal nature of marriage? After marriage, why should women go to husband's place? If you look from common sense knowledge, you will never understand the society. So, what this NCERT or what this UPSC optional, sociology optional is saying is, don't look Indian society. Never understand Indian society from the lens of common sense. Rather, have a sociological eye towards it. You understand my point? So this is what we are studying. What did I discuss? How we are understanding Indian society? We are understanding Indian society by looking into the impact of colonial rule on Indian society. Yes or no? Because in Indian society, around 300, more than 3.5 centuries, India was under as a colony of Britishers. So we lived in the shadow of colonialism. Under this shadow of colonialism, how Indian society has changed, that we have to study. Okay. So the British did not merely rule India, they restructured Indian society itself. They changed economy, because how they have changed economy? They forced commercialization of agriculture. Okay, earlier Indian agriculture was not commercial. Earlier we were only cultivating food crops. Britishers introduced cash crops, indigo cultivation, tobacco cultivation, jute, cotton. You understand my point? Because of this, what happened? Agriculture has become commercial. Agriculture has become a commercial activity. Because of this commercialization of agriculture, poverty of farmers increased, because when you are going for commercial cash crops, food security will be impacted. Okay, if food security is impacted, gradually it will be leading to drought. You understand my point? So, forced commercialization of agriculture, India became raw material supplier and market for British goods. State and law. You understand my point? The present in India, very unfortunate thing is, many laws in India which we are following is still being followed through colonial hangover, is still existing. That is the reason why you see homosexuality was criminalized by Britishers. Homosexuality means same sex relationship is unnatural and చెప్పింది Britishers. Britishers said that same sex marriage is unnatural. But unfortunately, Britishers in their own country, they have given legal rights to same sex marriage. But in India, still we are carrying forward that colonial legacy. Many laws have colonial hangover. So, modern bureaucracy, police, for that matter, modern bureaucracy, police also. Till now, I don't understand why police people have to learn horse riding. Colonials rode horse. And why they rode horse? Because there was no transportation. Now, that riding horse has become a part of culture of police. And still it is being practiced. Okay, so law and state has so much of influence because of colonial policies. But because of Bharatiya Nyaya Shastra, BNS, we have brought so many changes. We tried to reduce the colonial hangover. Next, knowledge. Knowledge also, now in India we are talking about delimitation, we are talking about census. Census or transportation, infrastructure, education system. In India, English education was introduced by which committee? Macaulay-Minute. Macaulay-Minute introduced English education. So it is still being considered. So I am not saying that all the measures which has been taken by Britishers are against Indian society. Definitely they build. For that matter, Britishers have provided some kind of quasi-structuring to Indian society. How the quasi-structuring has been done by Britishers, that we are knowing. So knowledge, census, ethnography, maps. Britishers know India by classifying it. Caste. The problem is, once Britishers started classifying this caste, what Indians have realized later after independence, this classifying of caste will lead to further differentiation of Indian society. That is the reason why nowadays we talk about this debate called caste census. Is it needed or not? In 2021 census, we have introduced caste census. Some people are saying that, majority people are saying that caste census is going to benefit. But some people are saying that caste census will further divide India. So this concept of caste census, which was introduced by Britishers, have made caste system more rigid. Earlier caste was rigid, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Now this caste census which was introduced by Britishers. Census is needed to classify it, but caste census is promoting rigidity. So that is the reason why when we talk about British rule, there are some pros, there are some cons. Next, education. Just now I talked about it. Infrastructure, railways, telegram, all these things has also brought so much structuring to the shape to the Indian society. Next, new identities. Because of, this is also very important. Because of British rule, what happened was, in India, what was the class of people before Britishers? Everyone belongs to one class, that is rural agricultural class. Yes or no? But because of Britishers, there is very important topic in sociology paper 2. Very important. That topic is called as a middle class. Because of Britishers, we see the rise of middle class. Because of Britishers only, English education done. Because of English education, what happened? Because of English education, clerk, government jobs, IAS officers, IPS officers, these jobs increased. So because of this, agriculture people have changed their status from agricultural laborers to job holders. So new middle class emerged in India because of Britishers. Now you understood how Indian society is undergoing change because of British rule. Now you understand what is middle class? Means caste earlier in India, illa ardham cheskondi. When we are talking about middle class, earlier in India we have only agrarian classes. Earlier in India, we have only agrarian classes. Earlier in India, we have only, what do you say? Excuse me. Okay. Earlier in India, we have agrarian class or we have only rural class. Okay. Rural people, rural class, rural people. Now you see urbanization increased, industries increased because earlier in India we have only occupation based jobs. Sorry, caste based occupations. Yes or no? But because of undergoing transformation, when India was undergoing transformation, we see caste neutral jobs. Okay, rural, urban people increases. Because of all these factors, we see in India, we see the rise of middle class. Earlier, identity was based on only caste. New identities emerged. Industrial class. Okay, clerk class, teachers class, officers class. New identities emerged. You understand my point? So this is how Britishers tried to understand Indian society. Britishers tried to understand Indian societies. Britishers shaped Indian societies. Britishers brought changes in Indian society. Is it clear? Now, nationalism and making of India. What did I say with respect to nationalism? In India, what happened was, earlier there was village consciousness. This village consciousness was replaced with national consciousness because of what? Because of British rule. Britishers brought that national consciousness. So India was imagined by its freedom fighters or discovered by them. Okay. So NCERT suggests both. Was India imagined by its freedom fighters or discovered by them? So definitely it is, once this national consciousness emerged and Indian freedom fighters have carried forward this national consciousness. That is how we see this national consciousness was gradually turned, reshaped, re-energized, converted into freedom struggle. That is what NCERT is saying. Two founding visions. What are the founding visions? Gandhiji saw India in its villages. So, you know, when we talk about villages, no. For what did Britishers say? That villages were isolated. Villages were isolated. Gandhiji also said that villages were isolated. But Gandhiji perception of isolated villages is for the perspective of development of villages. See, in our sociology optional, there is a concept called village studies. We will discuss it in a length. Okay, but briefly, what do we study about village studies? Village studies define Indian society. That is the reason why Britishers said that Indian villages are lacking unity, lacking connectivity. There is no interconnectedness. That interconnectedness only developed because of British rule. But many Indian sociologists criticized. Nehru questioned, M.N. Srinivas questioned, many sociologists criticized. Of all these things, Gandhiji was also one person who have done village studies in India. In the writings of Gandhi, we see the study of village studies. Gandhiji also believed that Indian villages have to be isolated. Why they have to be isolated is, the purpose of Gandhi was very different. The intention of Gandhi was not to say that Indian societies were, what you say, Indian villages were old, Indian villages were not progressive. No. Gandhiji's idea of Indian villages was, he said that if India have to be developed, that is the reason why in your fundamental DPSP, Gandhian ideals untai chudandi. In Gandhian ideals, in DPSP, he will be talking about village development of India through village self-sufficiency. So Gandhi's idea of village study was self-sufficiency. He said that villages have to be self-reliant. Means nothing but, for suppose my age is 35, sir. If at all I depend on my father's earning, will my family ever become progressive? When will my family become progressive? My brothers have to become self-reliant. Gandhiji is also saying that for India to prosper, villages to develop. So his idea of village studies is very different. Okay. So Gandhiji in a way accepted to the Western idea that villages were isolated. But his understanding is very different. But Nehru said that Nehru's understanding of Indian society and Indian villages were different. Nehru saw India through history, a unity of diversity, that industrialization, science and planned economy would carry into modernity. Nehru said that India should not be living only in villages. India should be living in urban areas. In India, people should be dependent on agriculture. People should not only dependent on agriculture. 2 points. People should depend on agriculture, but people should not only depend on agriculture. That is the reason why Nehru emphasized on industrialization, urbanization. So what is saying? Nehru saw India through the history of unity in diversity, that is encouraged through industrialization, science, planned economy would carry into modern. You understand my point? Now, why Nehru said that he don't want India to be only identified through villages? Why he want urban cities to be developed? Why industries should be developed? Nehru only point is very simple. If everyone in India is depending or living only in villages, don't you think there will be an unforeseen burden on land? People will fight for land. Now only you see in urban areas also, if at all I want to buy a piece of land, buying a piece of land is very difficult. If at all MLA is looking at this land, he will exploit that land. So fight for land will increase. No. So that is the reason why agriculture can never accommodate complete interest of India. That is the reason why he in his foresight, he said that we should not only focus on villages, we should focus on development of urban areas, urban cities and industrialization. So that is Nehru's understanding of Indian society. Rabindranath Tagore, Ambedkar, Bhagat Singh, added further textures to understanding Indian society. Rabindranath Tagore, you know, when we sing Janagana Mana song, okay, so who wrote that song? Huh? So when many people think that Rabindranath Tagore only talked about nationalism, Rabindranath only wrote about patriotism, but unforeseen writings of Rabindranath Tagore, in that underlying these writings of Rabindranath Tagore, you see the spread of humanism. You know, Rabindranath Tagore was asked a question, okay, when you, to which value you give more importance? Is it patriotism, nationalism, or anything else? Rabindranath Tagore emphasized on humanism. When we sing our national anthem, we get that patriotic feeling, and when we think about nation, we get that nationalistic feeling. But the person who wrote rich text to promote patriotism and nationalism, he also emphasized on humanism. Means he said that all the humans are one. Instead of promoting humanism, instead of promoting nationalism and patriotism, first everyone should think about humanistically. Means nothing but nationalism. What nationalism says? For your country to fulfill the needs, to fulfill the needs, the priority should be fulfilling the needs of your country. But Rabindranath Tagore said that no, what is the most important value should be there is you have to promote humanism. Means humanism means brotherhood should be promoted, considering the needs of everyone should be promoted. Unfortunately, you know, because of nationalism only, one country is fighting with other country. Rabindranath Tagore in his writings underlined that humanism should be more promoted. Although he wrote more on patriotism and nationalism, his values, his ideas on humanism is more popular. But it is not that much popular because many people don't understand this. When you read more about Rabindranath Tagore, you will understand. He said that people should not fight amongst themselves. If sometimes citizens are compromising on their needs, it's okay, because at the end of the day they are living in very dehuman conditions. For that matter, you see Rohingyas are being killed, Rohingyas are being executed in Myanmar. If they want shelter in India, if you think nationalistically, you say that if Rohingyas are entering India, Indian resources will be compromised. But when you think from the lens of Rabindranath Tagore emphasized on humanism. If you think humanistically, you can accommodate them. Okay, so that is the reason why he looked Indian society, he understood Indian society, and he talked about Indian society. In Indian society, we have to promote humanism. Ambedkar talked about Indian society, annihilation of caste. Bhagat Singh talked about revolutionary equality. Okay, so this is how you have to understand about nationalism and its making. How nationalism promoted in India? Because of colonial policies. And this nationalism, this national consciousness which has been emerged out of colonial policies, and that national consciousness has been converted into nationalism by whom? Freedom fighters. That is what has been explained in the introduction to Indian society. So when we talk about our freedom struggle is one of the important aspects of Indian society. You cannot talk about Indian society without freedom struggle. You cannot talk about Indian history without freedom struggle. So one of the unique factor, which one of the core factors through which you understand Indian society is nationalism or freedom struggle. And this freedom struggle emerged in India as a consequence of colonial policies. Unity in diversity we will discuss in last chapter. Unity in diversity already we have discussed. In India we have so many languages are there, so many tribes are there, tribal diversity is there, language diversity is there, religious diversity is there, region diversity is there, North India, South India, cuisine, cuisine, caste diversity is there. Amidst all these diversities in India, we see unity in diversity is being promoted. That is the reason why Emile Durkheim talked about mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. What is mechanical solidarity? In simple society, everyone will be thinking same. Norms will be same. So automatically unity emerges. But unity emerging in organic solidarity is very difficult. In complex societies is very difficult. When can complex societies will be united? When there is an organic solidarity. That is the reason why unity in diversity in India is nothing but organic solidarity. Chudandi, in West Asia, when they are following one religion, but they are conflicting, every day there is a conflict. In India, there are multiple religions, still we see solidarity. That is why India is known for its unity in diversity. Amidst diversity, and enta diversity unna, still in India, we maintain this unity. Okay. Okay, so what are the foundational concepts you must know when you are studying about Indian society? Okay, colonialism, just now I tried to explain how colonialism impacted Indian society. Capitalism, who introduced capitalism? Britishers. In West, capitalism which was introduced, they introduced in India. Industrialization, urbanization, just now we talked about modernity, nation state. What is the difference between nation and a state? Is India a nation state or a state nation? Raspon, assignment. In the last class I gave an assignment, no? Have you done with that assignment? What is the assignment which I have given in the last class? Sociological implication of stubble burning. Tell me what are the sociological implications? We'll discuss. So this assignment and that assignment we'll discuss tomorrow. Because I don't want to break the structure of the lecture. Write down your assignment. What is a nation and a state? Is India a nation, state, or state, nation? Is India a nation state or so this we'll discuss now. Okay, this concept we'll discuss tomorrow. After you discuss, okay, you have to study. Next, democracy. Democracy was also introduced by Britishers. Parties, political representation and all. Secularism was also introduced by Britishers. So secularism, although India was a secular country, secularism is not introduced by Britishers. Okay, so to understand Indian society, these are all the concepts you need to know. Okay, next, see, in this chapter, there is a case study called, they have introduced this case study, farm labor dairy. Okay, so read this case study which I will share, you will understand. After understanding all the concepts which we have discussed, you can read this case study. Simple. So, as I said now, from Indian society, introduction to Indian society, every year in GS1, there will be a question. So, what are the previous year questions you see? What makes Indian society unique in sustaining its culture? Are we losing our local identity for the global identity? To protect our local identity, by promoting global identity, are we losing our local identity? The spirit of tolerance and love is not only an interesting feature of Indian society. Spirit of tolerance and love is not only an interesting feature of Indian society from very early times, but it is also playing an important role at the present. It is also playing an important role at the present. Okay. In Sociology Optional, Indian sociology is both a study of Indian society and sociology in India. Indian society is both a study of Indian society and sociology in India. Let me tell you. Can anyone answer this question? With my explanation so far, you will clearly write that answer. You no need to read any other book to write this question. The last question, think properly and try to answer. Indian sociology is both a study of Indian society and sociology in India. Very interesting question.
Is a study of Indian society because we are studying how Indian society is.
Yes.
And it is also sociology in India, how the society is organized, how the people are.
Very close, but very far. Shivani. Simple, sir. Indian sociology is nothing but studying about Indian society. This now we learned. What did I say till now in my conversation? Sociology in India should not be an understanding of Western scholars. Indian scholars' understanding of Indian society. Second point, sociology in India is that word. We don't want sociological understanding of Indian society through Western scholars' lens. Through Indian scholars. That is the reason why Indian sociology is both a study of Indian society and sociology in India. Reading books will not give you understanding. Analyzing, thinking. In my classes, I always emphasize that UPSC is not about knowledge. UPSC is not nearly about knowledge. UPSC is about critical thinking. If you don't develop this critical thinking, forget about clearing this exam. You are not suited for this exam. Critical thinking should be developed. Next chapter, demography. Okay, demography is nothing but studying of, what is demography? See, what is demography is description of people, how much, what is the numerical strength, what is the point. Okay, so just in geography also, geographers also become, in geography also there is a demography chapter. But in society, how this demography chapter is different. We will not just calculate, geographers will just calculate the data. They will calculate the impact or consequence of the data on Indian society. For suppose, if someone is calculating the data, if demographers are calculating the data, they say that for 1000 men, there are 950 women. For 1000 men, there are 920 women. Or this is a data. Sociologists will analyze this data. They will say that why this data is fluctuating. What is the reason behind it? You understand my point? So that is the reason why. What is demography? The description of people. Demography is nothing but description of people. But sociologists will not just focus on numerical. So demography is the systematic study of human population, its size, distribution, composition, and process that change them. But sociologically, demography is, we will study the impact of demography on society. How this size of population is impacting Indian society. How the distribution of population is impacting society. Consumption pattern is impacting society. Okay. So demography is of two types. Now you understood? Demography is just numerical calculation. But demography in sociology is nothing but impact of these numerical figures on Indian society. Formal demography and social demography. So what do you understand by formal demography and social demography? Formal demography focuses on the mathematical measurements of population. Formal demography focuses on the mathematical measures of population, calculates birth rate, death rate, fertility, migration, growth curves, etc. But social demography, that is what I am saying, no. Social demography asks why behind the number. Why this number? Okay, why this number is changing? Why this number is increasing? Why this number is decreasing? What is happening? If at all the number is this, why this number? For 1,000 men, why there are only 920 women? Okay, that will be done by social demography. You understand my point? So as I talked about it, no, Malthusian theory of demography. So what did I say? Malthusian theory of demography, he said that population will increase geometrical proportion and resources will increase at arithmetic proportion, and this would lead to resource crunch, and societies would collapse. So this is the theory of famous demographer Malthusian. As I said, no, formal demography is different from social demography. That is the reason why Malthusian theory, okay, Malthusian theory was criticized by sociologists who Marxists criticized Malthusian theory of demography. What Marx said is, see, your theory is okay, your theory is wrong on these lines. If the society, if population is increasing exponentially, resources are increasing in an arithmetic progression, society would collapse. But this theory is wrong. This Malthus gave the theory in 1998. After that, Karl Marx or Marxist criticized this Malthusian theory, and Marxist said that actually, as I said, no, if population is increasing, resources are not increasing, then poverty will increase. That is what, no, if in India now we have 100 crore population, we have 10,000 quintals of rice. Okay, if in India, imagine there are 140 crore population. Okay, in India there are 140 crore population, and imagine everyone will eat 1 quintal of rice per year. How much quantity of this much is important? 140 quintals of rice, 140 crore quintals of rice is needed. If population is increasing exponentially, means nothing but if population is increasing exponentially and resources are increasing geometrically, then definitely poverty will increase. So this is what is being said by Malthus. But Marx is questioning this Malthusian theory of Malthusian theory. He is saying that poverty is not because of high population and less resources. Poverty is because of few people are appropriating the means of production. Remember, and other people are not giving access to means of production. Capitalists are exploiting labor. That is the reason why we see. What is happening? That is the reason why we see poverty is increasing. So Marxist is questioning this theory of demography. Ardhamainda? Are we understood what is this? Next. And Marx said that Malthus is saying that resources will not increase exponentially. Malthusian theory ignored green revolution. Technology emerges. See, if birth is not happening, if childbirth is not also, there is a problem in childbirth. We are using technology, assisted reproductive technologies to give birth to a child. But don't you think to increase resources, food resources, we can also use technology? Malthus could not foresee agriculture revolutions like green revolution, biotechnology, yield multiplication. Now you see, earlier only crops used to grow in sand. Now we are talking about hydroponics. Hydroponics means what growing plants in water. We are seeing green revolution. Green revolution is giving multiple productivity is growing exponentially. Means resources are growing exponentially. Population is not growing exponentially. Resources are growing exponentially. So this is how sociologists. Now you understood why I have discussed this point is to explain you this point. What is that? Formal demography and social demography. Formal demography is only concerned about numbers. Population will increase, resources will not increase. Social demographics will understand why your theory is not incomplete because of this reason. Okay. So the theory of demographic transition. Okay. The theory of demographic transition. How demographic transition happens? You know, we have different stages of demographic transition. Initially, you know, population growth was very high because there was no contraceptives. People don't know what is condom. People don't know what is people don't have any awareness with respect to contraceptives also. Now, but situation changed. We became more aware. Okay, when in the past means before independence in India, let me tell you, there was high population because couples were giving birth to 10 people, 11 people. Some couples were creating cricket teams. Okay, cricket teams, volleyball teams, football teams. Why do you think that they are giving birth to children? Because during that point of time, one is source of income. Next, source of his income is one thing. Next, during that point of time, birth rate was also more. Death rate was also more. Death rate or death due to diseases. Viruses, all these things, cholera, virus, and because of these, parents were concerned that if we give birth to more children, half of the children would be survived. See, unfortunately, this is true. Unfortunately, this is very true. Okay, so that is, first of all, they are not having awareness about contraceptives. They are not having awareness about population policies. Or they don't have any awareness. So that is the reason why high birth rate and high death rate initially. Gradually, when independence came or situations changed, what happened? We introduced technology, healthcare facilities changed. Because of lack of healthcare, also people, if at all they get any virus, they would die. Okay, now healthcare happened. That is the reason why you see initially COVID deaths were more. But when vaccine we introduced, death rate have come down. So healthcare facilities increase and awareness increased. So gradually we see first birth rate was more, death rate was more. Gradually birth rate was more only, death rate decreased. Next, when death rate increased, gradually birth rate also increased and population awareness increased. So that is what we see in theory of demographic transition. If you read it, you will understand. Simple? Okay. Next. Demographers vocabulary. You know what is crude birth rate? Crude birth rate is live births per 1000. Live birth per 1000 population. Crude death rate is death rate per 1000 population. Maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate. Should I explain these basics? You know, no? Okay. So India's population snapshot means, now according to United Nations survey, how much is the population of India? 1.42 billion. Taggaru, perugutune unnaru. Okay. So total fertility rate. What do you understand by total fertility rate? You don't know what is total fertility rate. Total fertility rate is India on an average. How how many people are being given birth by a average Indian couple? That is 2. Okay, that is what in India total fertility rate is 2. TFR. So total fertility rate is average Indian couples would reproduce how many average Indian couples would reproduce how many couples. So presently in India total fertility rate is 2. What is the ideal fertility rate? Means what should be the ideal fertility rate? The ideal fertility rate in India or any country should be 2.1. Why total fertility rate should be 2.1? Ideal fertility rate is because ideal fertility rate should be 2.1 because definitely if 2 children is giving birth to 2 couple is giving birth to 2 children or more than 2.1, then what happens is if because unforeseen events, infant mortality rate or maternal mortality rate, then because of death, then the population would be stabilized. So what is ideal total fertility rate is 2.1. If average Indian couples or average couples are giving birth to 2.1, then the population will be stabilized. Means we will be replaced with new generation. How many people are there on this earth will be replaced by new people? That is what we call as an average ideal fertility rate. But in India, ideal fertility rate is coming down to 2. Means you understand, in India initially total fertility rate was somewhere around 4.5 and 5, and this has gradually reduced and we see today it is 2. But many people are saying that ideally it should be 2.1, but now we see 2. It is below ideal replacement fertility rate. So this is replacement fertility rate. Ideal or replacement fertility rate. So replacement fertility rate is 2.1 and replacement fertility rate should be 2.1. But in India, what is total fertility rate now? 2. And a replacement fertility, it is below replacement fertility rate. But actually the reason why total fertility rate is coming down in India is because of economic considerations. Economic considerations is, we talked about dink families. People are not giving birth to children because of inflation and all. So it is not a concern for India. Some countries, this total fertility rate, replacement fertility rate is 2.1. In some countries, this total fertility rate is somewhere around 1. In some countries, it is below 1 also. For that countries, it will be a cause of concern. Because at the end of the day, population will decline. No. Okay. Are you understanding this? So demography, what we'll be discussing? See, demographic dividend. What is demographic dividend? Number of people who can contribute to the economy, who can contribute to the growth of the nation. That is what is demographic dividend. Young population. So in India, population below the age of 35 is how many people? 65%. So this is age composition in India. See, this data, why I am not discussing about demography in detail in this chapter is, this data will be outdated by the time you write. Majorly, you will focus more on the 2021 census. Okay, that will be more. Or 2011 census. Okay, more or National Family Health Survey reports. That data will be more important. And this data will be very much important to justify your answers, to substantiate your answers. Okay. Age composition 0 to 14 years. How much percentage of population is? 26%. 15 to 59 years. How many population? 63. 60 plus years, how much? 11. Now the problem here is, by 2050, the share of elderly population is going to become double. By 2050, how much it is going to become? 22. Means nothing but demographic burden will be increasing. So that is the cause of concern in India. Missing women. Missing women is skewed sex ratio. For 1,000 people, for 1,000 men, how much women should be there? 1,000 women. Because natural birth rate means for a couple, naturally if first child is girl, second child would be boy. Or naturally the overall sex ratio will be equal, should be equal or somewhat different. If at all 1,000 girl child is born, there will be 1,000. Then there should be 998 boy child. It will be roughly 10% margin should be there. But use 10% or 10 numbers. 0.01% margin should be there. But you see 1%, 10% difference we are seeing. We are seeing in these numbers. Why this is happening is because of human intervention, sex selective abortions, okay, and female feticides. This is happening, and that is nothing but missing woman concept. Okay, and I have given the demographic comparisons between this. In Kerala, what is happening is elderly population in Kerala is increasing. That is the reason why you see recently Kerala government has introduced a very unique measure in budget. What is that? Do anyone know that? This year only, before 2 months, not even 2 months, 1.5 months back, Kerala in its budget, what it has introduced, Kerala what it have done is, earlier in our budget, in our union budget, what we used to do is, we used to just give what are the, this much is the budget, this much are the expenditure, this much are the money we are allotted for railways, this is the money which is allotted for roadways, this is the money we are allotting for finance ministry. But UPA government, from Chidambaram, what we are doing is, in India we are doing gender budgeting. Gender budgeting means for men welfare programs, how much we are contributing. For women welfare program, how much we are contributing. That we have done. But Kerala government, what happened is, in Kerala, there were somewhere around 19 or 20% of the population are elderly. So, of 100 rupees, means budget means state have 100 rupees. Out of 100 rupees, they are spending 19 to 20% of the money on the development of elderly. So, in their budget, they introduced elderly dimension of budget spending. This is in the news. That should be written. Very important. You understood? Okay. So, National Population Policy 2020 and the demographic dividend. What is the relationship between National Population Policy 2020 and demographic dividend? National Population Policy 2020 emphasized 2000, sorry, not 2020. National Education Policies 2020. Anujana repeat ayindi. National Population Policy 2000. What is the goal? It is meet unmet need for contraception and health infrastructure. Health infrastructure should be promoted and contraceptives to be promoted. Long term, medium term, reduce total replacement fertility rate to replacement level. What is the replacement level? Just now we have seen 2.1. Now you understood what is replacement level. Next, long term, achieve stable population by 2045. Stable population, when it will be happening? When the society achieves replacement level and the death rate is controlled, life expectancy is increased. Okay, so this is the National Population Policy, and this population policy also emphasized on demographic dividend. So what is demographic dividend? From 2020 to 2050, when India's working age population is larger than its dependent population, because we talk what did we talk? After 2050, elderly population will become 22%. Means nothing but demographic dividend will come down. in India for this 30 years, from 2020 till 2030, India have demographic dividend. No country in the world have that demographic dividend. No country means major countries. Japan is having old elderly burden. China is having elderly burden. European countries having elderly burden. You know, in Scandinavian countries, women are not ready to give birth to child. Government of Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, alanti countries lo, in those countries, government is saying that if you give, you no need to take care of the child. You just give birth to child. We will grow the child and we will take care of the child. Every expenses we will take care of. And we will you know, some Scandinavian countries are hiring women for not for job, to give birth to children. So if children is not born, now who will take the responsibility of the next generations? So India is the country which has this demographic dividend. So that is how we have to move forward. So, but unfortunately in India, when this demographic dividend is there, but unskills, lack of skills, what you say, skill development, lack of skill development is becoming one of the major concerns. Okay, we have to make sure that Indian skills are imbibed with skill set. Indian youth are imbibed with skill set. Okay, conditions to repeat: skill the youth, create productive jobs in MSME, raise female labor force participation rate. Okay, so these are the previous year questions from these topics. Go through this chapter, and tomorrow we will start with chapter 3.